Hi everyone, it's me, and today let's learn to start a family in Encanto. Let's go!
Nestled in the middle of the Colombian mountains, the magical
Colombia.
Madrigal's Encanto is a perfect place. There's no war,
Magic.
there's beautiful weather, there's plenty of food. There's just one problem. They're also probably inbreeding. Whoopsie!
What?
No diving in today, friends, because this gene pool is shallow. But just how bad is it? Forget making plants grow or changing the weather. Today I'm asking the question, is the real miracle of the Encanto the fact that they've been avoiding genetic defects for generations?
Well, I don't think so. Maybe there's one or two outliers, but in general...
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory.
Hello Internet! Welcome to Film Theory! Hi! Let's start.
I'm waiting on a miracle. The miracle of
Miracle.
you hitting that subscribe button. So remember
Subscribe.
that time
Thank
a few
you.
months ago when I did a theory after watching Encanto one too many times with my 3-year-old? Well,
Sorry.
we haven't stopped.
Sorry.
And months later, I still am trying to force myself to see more and more details in the animation to try and keep sane. For instance, I'll be
Sorry.
the first to admit that it took an embarrassingly long amount of time for me to realize that one side of the family wears blue tones and the other side of the family wears orange tones, and that people who are in the middle, like Mirabel and Bruno, have these strong green accents. But there are also plenty of smaller moments too, like here in the opening song. Where's this bridge coming from? We're in the middle of the
where?
village, and Luisa just picks up a random bridge. What is a complete bridge doing in the middle of the road? Speaking
True, what is the architectural... what is it doing there?
of inconsistencies, can someone please answer this for me, because it drives me nuts every time I watch the movie. Are the first set of cracks that Mirabel sees real? After Antonio's ceremony, she sees cracks in the wall, but when the family comes, they're all gone. So were they real, or were they just a dream? Because Mirabel cuts her hand on a broken roof tile, so it had to be real, but then did Casita just fix itself? Or was it actually this guy?
Have you been
Magic.
in here patching the cracks?
Oh, that? No. All the patching's done by Hernando.
Who is Hernan?
I'm Hernando and I'm scared of nothing.
And I'm scared of nothing! Thank you so much. Thank you.
There are also these cool character moments too, like here, I love how Dolores is uncomfortable with Antonio riding a Jaguar. It's just a funny, small blink and you miss it look. Speaking of characters who are uncomfortable, well, we would expect Isabella to be annoyed by Mirabel, and she clearly is in practically every scene. Auntie Peppa also gives her a fair number of death glares throughout the movie. Mirabel is just very unpopular in the family. But watching it as many times as I have, I actually think that Abuela is the one that gets the best character beats. Like here, after this moment,
He wants 5 babies.
Wonderful.
Abuela, who's always focused on appearances, picks the one imperfect flower out of Isabella's hair. There's also here where she's sweeping up the flowers from her earlier conversation with Isabella, or here where she subconsciously adjusts her earrings when talking about having to meet the other family, because again, she's all about appearing perfect. But as you can probably imagine, listening to We Don't Talk About Bruno one too many times starts to do funny things to your head. And
Yep, it's something like, we don't talk about Bruno, no. Sorry.
my mind started to do the thing that it always does. It got dark. See, somewhere after the 45th viewing, it really started to sink in that the people in magical Encanto have been living there undisturbed for 50 years. Nobody has entered
Yes.
and nobody has left.
Half a century, okay?
You know, the mountains around the Encanto are pretty tall.
And we know this for a fact because the co-director Jared Bush has said multiple times that the family hasn't left and that any new additions have come from within the existing Encanto community, which can only mean one thing: inbreeding. Since there's only a small number of people in this isolated village, and since it's been 50 years of them being stuck there, is this a genetically stagnant population? Did they
That's a very good question, MacPat. There might be one or two outliers, but as a whole, I don't think that they'll make such a silly mistake of inbreeding.
have to worry about inbreeding? Has it happened yet? Will it happen? Well, I looked into it because
It will happen, inevitably. But as a general population, they probably will not make a silly mistake of doing it.
of course I did, and for as stupid as this question may seem on the surface, the answer wound up being fascinating, because it seems to have some huge ramifications for the ending of the movie, and it puts the return of the magic into a brand new light. So get ready and let's turn the sound up, because now it's time for a theory roundup.
Theory roundup! I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
As a quick refresher, or for those of you who never saw my episode on Count Chocula over on Food Theory, inbreeding is the mating of people who are closely related through ancestry. It's a practice that's probably most associated with rich, high-powered families in ye olden days like the Habsburgs, who would inbreed as a means of keeping their bloodlines pure.
But case in point, if you notice their facial expressions, their facial their similarities.
Sure that no new DNA was getting into the family. Why would this be such a problem? Well, as most of you probably know by now, there are dominant and recessive genes that dictate what traits a child gets, and many genetic diseases are recessive traits. This usually isn't a problem. When we outbreed, what we're really doing is shuffling our DNA around to make sure that there's genetic diversity. That way, even if we have a recessive genetic disease, our partner likely doesn't, meaning that the child is protected. However, inbreeding does the exact opposite of this. Blood-related people have similar DNA, which greatly increases the chances of both partners carrying a dangerous recessive allele and passing it on to their offspring. So, while inbreeding was historically used to keep the bloodlines pure, the practice was actually amplifying the problems that were floating around in the DNA chains generation after generation.
Yes, if it carries on for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 generations, the keeping in the family, it's keeping the viruses, the diseases in the family as well. It will kill the family inevitably.
Tended to result in each generation having decreased stamina, size, and fertility, while increasing the amount of infant mortality.
See, generation 1 to generation 8. Sooner or later, once you get to the later generations, the problems will start to surface more and more.
But inbreeding isn't just a problem for the rich, noble families who are trying to stay pure. Since the beginning of time, small, remote populations have historically struggled with inbreeding because of their shallower gene pools. A real-world example of this can be found on the isolated atoll in the Western Pacific named Pingalap, also known as the Island of the Colorblind. The population is descended from 20 people who survived a typhoon which hit the island in the 18th century. One of the survivors was a carrier of achromatopsia, a rare recessive disorder which causes total color blindness. With such a tiny gene pool remaining, today 1/10 of the island's population is totally colorblind. In contrast, here in the States, color blindness normally affects 1 in 33,000 Americans, with
See, you must understand that. I just love it that MatPat include the mathematics. So 1 in 10 is 10%, whereas the possibility of it happening to 1% is like 0.00001%, maybe. You get the point, right? I just love the mathematics that MatPat involved in his videos. Thank you so much for being so educational.
1 in 100 as carriers. Instead of outbreeding to potentially cause recessive alleles to disappear from the population, inbreeding makes those things more common. So, knowing all this, it stands to reason that maybe the village inside the Encanto could share a similar fate. They too are an isolated village with a small population size. Did any of you guys ever have to read 100 Years of Solitude in English class? It was actually an 11th grade summer reading requirement for me. Anyway, it's a 1967 novel written by author Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Stop me if you've heard this one before. The book is all about the Buendia family, a family that lives in a small remote village in Colombia. The book is full of magical realism, a surprising amount of yellow butterflies, and inbreeding. Considering that Encanto also features a small remote Colombian village with magical powers and yellow butterflies, it stood to reason that maybe the inbreeding was a match too.
Okay, maybe just a coincidence? Maybe.
Saying, if the genetically undifferentiated shoe fits, wear it. To get things started, I wanted to get a sense of how many people actually live in the Encanto in the first place. I mean, it seems like a small community, but then again, I could be completely misjudging things. After looking at a few key group scenes, I was actually surprised by my tally. I first counted everyone who attended Antonio's gift ceremony. In the stage directions of the script, it says that the whole village is there. And it's also the moment that features the most people in one place, so it felt like a good indicator for the overall size of the community. I also counted the number of people who appeared during the Family Madrigal opening number, but I quickly learned that the number wouldn't be exact since we see a couple people multiple times. I also did my best to count the number of people who came to rebuild the house at the end of the film. After doing all of these counts—
Wait, stop for one first, MatPat. I pity you, man. I pity you, man. You have to watch this video so many times in which you started counting the individual people. Ah man, I feel bad for you, man. I feel bad for you.
Calculations while also trying to eliminate as many confirmed duplicates as I could, my best estimate for the number of people living in the village is anywhere between 310 and 320. So that's the current population, but in order to see how the population has grown over the last 50 years, we also have to know how many people entered the Encanto in the first place. The best place we have to calculate this number is this scene near the end of the movie when we witness Pedro Madrigal leading a group of refugees away from their homes. We get to see a wide shot of them while the group is crossing the river. And though it doesn't show us everyone, you can definitely count 55 people, consisting of 24 men, 17 women, and 14 kids. 9 girls, 5 boys.
55 kids. Oh no, 55 people. Oh, that number is a bit too small. 55 people. That number is a bit too small.
Don't think it's significantly more than this because as they're crossing the river, they suddenly see riders storming at them from the distance. The group hurries across the water and hides in the woods while Pedro hangs back to protect the group. As he says goodbye to Alma, we see the villagers running past them. Since Alma and Pedro were at the front of the pack in the beginning, it means literally everyone in the group had to pass them during that 20 seconds of screen time it takes for the riders to catch up. As such, it really doesn't seem like there are hundreds of people in this group. Since there are several people who I didn't see during the river crossing running past Alma and Pedro while he kisses the babies, I added in an extra 20, putting our initial population here at somewhere around 75.
But 75 for an initial number is still way too low. Way too low. Inbreeding confirm
Once you subtract the 14 kids, the extra men, and the 10% of the group who have fertility issues, which is the number that was decided upon by the National Institute of Health, I think in a perfect world scenario, it's safe to assume that there were a total of 25 couples in this initial group that are able to have children. Now, over 50 years, the population went from 75 to 300 plus. It might seem like a big leap, but in 1950, the births per woman average in Colombia was 6.4. To be fair, in 1900, Colombia's child mortality rate was estimated to be approximately 42%, meaning that almost 42% of all children born wouldn't survive past their 5th birthday due to ailments like pneumonia and TB. However, this village also has Julieta Madrigal, who could probably take a break curing people covered with cactus spines to save the lives of some sick babies. Long story short, between better healthcare, a lack of conflict, and a clean water source, we would expect most, if not all, of the children to survive. I mean, that is kind of the point of the Encanto after all. It's meant to be a paradise. Also, while we're on the subject, no, Julieta is not a cheat code for solving inbreeding. She doesn't seem to be able to cure genetic issues because, as we clearly see in the movie, she's able to cure the symptoms of Augustine's bee allergy, but not the actual genetic causes behind the problem. She can cure ailments like swelling, but not the underlying genetics issue. So nope.
Oh wait, I just love it that MadPat included the this one. Sorry, this one.
Be a paradise. Also, while we're on the subject, no, Julieta is not a cheat code.
Up, down, left. Oh, sorry. Up, down, left, right, BA. See. I just love it that MadPat included this kind of gaming cheat codes into his film theory video. Just love it, man, MadPat.
For solving inbreeding. She doesn't seem to be able to cure genetic issues because, as we clearly see in the movie, she's able to cure the symptoms of Augustine's bee allergy, but not the actual genetic causes behind the problem. She can cure ailments like swelling, but not the underlying genetics issue. So nope, inbreeding's still at play. Okay, so
Nintendo 64!
Knowing all of this information, do the people of the Encanto have to worry about inbreeding? Well, in 1980, a long-standing idea in species restoration theories was the so-called 50-500 rule. The idea behind it is that 50 people capable of creating children could prevent the immediate risk of inbreeding, and 500 would help combat genetic drift. 50, huh? Well, that's exactly where our count of Encanto's population wound up, so the Madrigal's village is riding dangerously close to the line. It also isn't helping their case that many more recent articles claim that the numbers from the 1980s are way too low. New estimates range from 98 to 150 to 160 to 10,000 and 14,000. Other articles suggest that the proper ratios here should be 505,000 instead of 5,500.
So case and point, regardless of which, right, the initial number should be hundreds, I guess, hundreds. And what MadPat guessed was probably, have estimated will probably be like 50 plus, 60 plus, 70 plus. It's still not in the hundreds range. Oh my gosh, inbreeding is possible. It's very possible.
Finally, in an article from Science Focus entitled How Do Small and Isolated Tribes Cope with Inbreeding, it states that there are tribal customs to prevent inbreeding, but quote, inbreeding only becomes a serious problem when the population drops below 50 or so. Basically, reading the relevant scientific literature, there seems to be no one consensus, which sucks again.
MadPat, what book are you reading? MadPat, what book are you reading? Don't read that book to your child, okay? Don't read that book to your child, okay? Game of Thrones also don't want. Don't read it. It's too gruesome.
Again, because Encanto's village is right there on the bubble. So I had to call in the big guns. I asked my buddy Austin from the show The Science over on Game Theory to
The signs of
design a computer model that would simulate mating patterns for Encanto's village, and then track the gene combinations that were being spread to offspring. From there, we would program in populations the size we calculated for the movie, and create best and worst case scenarios of mating patterns to see if and when inbreeding would occur. Because
well, thank you so much, Austin. Thank you.
there were so many hypotheticals at play, I felt it was best to keep it simple by keeping a 50-50 ratio of men to women being born. After running a few dozen rounds of the simulation, what we found was shocking. Yes, for as perfect as the Encanto was, there would be guaranteed inbreeding.
Yes, when the initial number is so low, inbreeding is bound to happen. Inevitably, it will happen. Maybe give or take another few hundred people into the initial number, then make the initial number become a few hundreds. It can prevent inbreeding, it can prevent, but the initial number is, as what Michael mentioned, 50 plus, 60 plus, 70 plus, around that range. It's not going up.
The best case scenario was that it would take 6 generations for the inbreeding to start to become inevitable. Assuming about 25 years per generation, the computer said it would happen sometime around 129 years. But in order to get even remotely that far, you'd have to be very careful about who was marrying who in order to get even. Oh my gosh.
I've spoken to the Guzmans
understand.
about Mariano's proposal to Isabella.
He wants 5 babies.
Hybrids.
Wonderful. Such a fine young man with our perfect Isabella will
Good
bring
job.
a new generation of magical blessings and make both of our families stronger.
I agree. 5 children, especially 5 children is good, especially in that particular situation in which for their future generations to survive. I just respect that Abrela, she thought about it. She thought way further about it for a few hundred years in the future. Good job, Abrela. Good job. The grandmother, of course.
They knew. At the very least, Abuela knew. That's why marriages had to be arranged in this world like Isabella marrying Mariano, to make sure everyone was staying genetically diverse. It is to make the family stronger. Literally, the only way to get 6 generations into this thing without any inbreeding is to carefully track and control genetic diversity and mating patterns. Abuela was the puppet master. Except there's only so long that they can last. Even if everything is perfectly controlled, you still only have a few generations left to go here. When we
Yes, a few hundred years later, your family will inevitably face the downfall because your initial number is just that low. Unfortunately, yeah.
join in with Mirabelle's story, they're sitting at the 50-year mark, nearly halfway through the best case scenario, 3 generations deep. According to our calculations, planning out each generation goes up in complexity squared, which becomes more and more difficult to manage. It's a fortunate thing then that the magic died and the mountain cracked in half when it did. It allowed the people inside to leave, and more importantly, it allowed new blood to come in.
Yes.
It's almost like the magic wasn't dying because the family was growing apart. Maybe instead the magic was dying because the family was growing a bit too close together.
And note that this video came out, the movie came out in the year 2021. That means the family will start to face like serious consequences in the year, let's say 2021. 2121. Oh! 2121. What a number. But you get the point, right? In the year 2121, it will happen. So anyways, what's the mean? The town folks, after spending all day building a house just for the man to come back.
But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut.
Well, thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you find this video very interesting to watch. It's very knowledgeable and educational, plus a lot of enjoyable and entertaining moments into it. So, entertaining, enjoyable, entertainment. Thank you so much, Matt Pat, and thank you so much to all the people involved in this creation of this video. You guys did a very good job in explaining, in the script writing. You guys did a good job. Well done. Well, anyways, thank you all so much for watching this video. If you do like this video, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to my channel, and comment down below if you have any share with us. Down below. Don't forget to follow my channel. I hope to see you in my next video. But hey, that's just a theory. Film theory. End cut. And I hope to see you all in my next video. Bye bye. Thank you so much. Subscribe. Thank you.